Item number 7, discussion and possible action to approve a response to the October 2020 ice storm, inclusive of but not limited to debris, etc., etc., etc.
Whoa.
Lots of debris.
That's the first
That
thing.
family picture,
Nice.
Do we need to vote on that?
Justin, would you mind handing, there's 3 items that they'll need.
I'll approve it.
Thank you.
The first slide,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin, I'm locked on 2 and I need to go back
Thank
to
you.
1.
Steve, is that blurry or my eyes just
No.
so serious? No, not at all. Huh? I'm sure. So it's my
You go back
need
one.
redoing, huh?
There.
That one? Can you
Yes,
do that
thank
already?
you.
Yeah, but it's still a little blurry. I mean, it's cloudy.
Well, I think maybe angle.
You might stay there just a minute.
That's why my eye
Oh,
doctor's
thank you.
sending me messages, time for your appointment.
Right?
Well, this is a lot of paperwork today, gentlemen.
Some historic perspective. In 2004, and I've already sent you this, but for benefit of the public, 2004, we dealt with 35,230 cubic yards of storm debris, and we did get a permit at that time. In 2015, we dealt with 10,000 cubic yards, and at that time, we were able to contract through the city of Edmond or piggyback on their contract and use a tub grinder to chip it. And the cost was $1.49 a cubic yard. So our cost was $14,900. At that time, we did get Fema reimbursement for that, if I remember correctly. This storm, and I'll be honest with you, Tinny and I did a windshield and tried to estimate. There's so many limbs down, trying to estimate what we got on the ground is very difficult.
Yeah.
But when you look at the number of blocks, or if you look at it by the number of individual lots we have in town, properties, it appears that we could have as much as 220,000 cubic yards. But even if you cut that in half, it's twice bigger than any event that we've had in recent time. And the city of Edmond and Norman both agree that the debris that they've seen is the largest that they've seen in their history. So this next slide is our temporary storm debris collection site, and this news release went out today. I just put it in there for your reference. You all seen this over the weekend, and then again today when we released it, that sets the procedures for the collection site out at the convenience center. It's residents only, commercial, churches, and apartments have to use a different process. Open from 8 to 4:45 and sets all that. It has to be limbs and not other stuff. We went through the process where we had to apply to get a permit to create the collection site. That permit was approved, we received it Monday morning, the approval. And so now we will open Thursday and start allowing residential to take their limb and storm debris out there free of charge. And then we'll have 90 days to get rid of whatever we collect. Of course, I'm assuming we can ask for extensions if we need to. And also, if we go to the next slide, once we collect this out at the collection site at the collection center, there's basically 3 ways for us to handle or dispose of it. One of them is an open burn, the storm debris. We have submitted an application for an open burn permit. The DEQ representative that inspected our collection site also inspected it as a burn site. She's turned her report in. It has a little bit more lengthy review process, but indicators are we will probably get a burn permit to burn that debris. But nothing's guaranteed until it goes through all the channels. Second option would be dispose of it by piggyback on the city of Edmond. They have went out for bids for tub grinder and chipping. And in 2015, again, it was $1.49. We will assume that it will be more of that in 2000 than it was $1.49, but we don't know how much more. But if there is 220,000 cubic yards, you're looking at 320,000 to grind it so that we can land apply it. If it's half of that, 100,000, you're looking at 149,000. We are going through the process with the assistance of David Ball and the state to pursue a federal designation so we get FEMA reimbursement. For all practical purposes, it appears that we will get that FEMA reimbursement, but again, nothing's guaranteed until it actually happens. So we're probably 3 or 4 weeks away at least till we get that designation. But if we do, then 75% of our cost for grinding we could get reimbursed for. So we technically we should get 12.5 from the state Office of Emergency Management, but it's a long process if you ever get to 12.5% from the state. But we'll quickly get to 75%.
So, and that would be for CapEx machinery?
That would be, if we contract it, it would be for any expenses that we have plus the contract to chip it.
So that wouldn't be buying our own chipper, for example?
I don't know, we could talk to FEMA about doing that, but right now.
And would we want to?
That's what we're gonna talk about in a little bit. But if we decided to buy our own tub grinder, by the time we ordered it, got it here, I don't think it would be timely to address this pile of debris.
Is there any cost to the permit, burn permit through DEQ?
I don't believe there was, no, sir. And of course, the third option is if we just put it in the boxes out there, the 30-yard boxes, it cost us roughly $11.23 a cubic yard. Well, then you're looking at over $2 million if it's 220,000 cubic yard, and if it's half, it'd be $1,123,000. Option 3 is not a reality. We want to do either 1 or 2.
Could you bury it?
We can land, rather than chip it?
No. Could you
Rather
let
than
it
burn it?
decompose,
No,
crush it,
I
and
don't
bury
think
it?
so.
Has to be chipped.
Has to be chipped.
Then you can land apply it.
Ah. I see.
Okay.
Burning's the best option, huh?
Yep.
Yes. Free residential curbside storm debris pickup. Existing by existing city manpower and equipment. The only comment we have there is with our limited manpower and equipment, it would take an extended period of time to complete a citywide curbside pickup, and it would have some impact on our ability to provide current services and complete some of our ongoing projects. We're looking at a multi-month process, so we would push some of our projects out that we could, and we'll still provide services, but we will be juggling things around. If we hire a third-party contractor to do it, in Edmond, they're using Harbor Masters, and it's part of their existing tree trimming contract because Edmond is an electric utility community. So it's already built in their contract. It's $9 a cubic yard. I don't think we can piggyback on that because it's not a bid, it's a contract they already have. But if we did do it for $9 at 200,000 cubic feet, we would be cubic yards, we'd be looking at paying somebody just around $1.8 million to do the curbside pickup. If our estimate is over and we're only 100,000, you're only looking at 900,000. Again, potentially, we could get 75% of that from FEMA. Harbor Masters estimate the city admin at $9 a cubic yard. Just the curbside pickup they're doing is going to cost them $5 million. Again, if we use a third-party contractor for the curbside pickup, we're estimating if we go out for bids, $7 to $9. We'll still be delayed some because we'll have to go through the bid process. Again, we can do it in-house, but we have to realize that we're going to have wear and tear on our equipment and our limited manpower. It will extend some of our projects out, and the level of service will suffer to some degree because we'll be trying to take manpower to that rather than what they normally do. And I'd let Tenny add anything he wants to that. You have any additional comments?
I don't have any additional comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions that maybe any of y'all would ask.
Do you think you and your team can pull that off in some kind of time frame this year?
If I had a recommendation to the council, I would say item 1 would be my recommendation. From visiting with, sitting down visiting with Harbor Masters, there's other things that go along with that we would want to look at. By the time they're totally all said and done with Edmond, they're probably looking at a closer reasonable number, closer to 10 million. Some of the other factors that they look at is done by hourly rates as well. Low hanging dangerous limbs, that's also in part of the contract. That's all done by hourly rate. It's not something that we would have to necessarily look at doing. But there's several little things. Harbor Masters also has a monitoring crew that comes along and just stays with them throughout the entire process, monitoring them. An additional cost as well that's going to go along with that. And what they do is they'll go in and they'll take pictures. They'll take measurements of tree limbs and different things like that, which we can all do in-house as well. Do I feel like that we could do this? Absolutely. We have the equipment. Everything that I have ever spec'd out to a council is spec'd out to a manner to serve versatile purposes, meaning all of our backhoes have clamshell buckets on them to provide us biting capabilities the same way as a grapple. Our track hose, all of that has thumbs on them with biting capabilities, same way as a grapple. So they serve multiple purposes, similar to our trucks. I mean, they're multiple purpose vehicles. Not only are they just a dump truck, but there are sand units. They're not held to one specific use, to where when you look at some of these companies, if we was to look at a grapple truck, you're looking at a 50-yard truck with a grapple, and that's all that purpose is going to be for is really during a major tree storm. We've put together a plan and put some thought to it on our end, and I think we have a good plan that is a doable plan. It would require some patience from the residents to get through this. It'd be a timely process. We would start at one side of town, make our way to the other side, and turn around and come back across. I would ask that we would cover all of our city facilities first. That would give the community a little bit of time for the residents that hasn't gotten out and cut up stuff. through this process, also opening it up Thursday for the residents to be able to dispose of stuff at the convenience center at the staging site. We're possibly looking at a lot of the residents going ahead and moving forward with that, once that gets out there to them as well, which is going to lessen the number that we're faced with on the curb.
One thing we might want to, we plan on, if we do this and do it in-house, we'll probably start in December. And with the holidays and everything, this won't be done by the end of this calendar year. It will carry over into next year. This is at least a 2-month, if not a 3-month process.
So does FEMA cover any of this cost for pickup?
We will be eligible for FEMA reimbursement if we get the federal designation, just like on the collections.
And what would that cover? I mean, obviously, we contracted it.
75% of our expenses.
We would track every bit of our movement that is storm related through Cartograph. It tracks every hour of it, every hour on piece of equipment, man hours, everything.
Yeah.
We then turn and submit that in to FEMA, and they will reimburse us 75%.
Quick question, why, would we wait till December when this is just front end of November?
Two things. One, as Tenny indicated, we would go ahead and start working on some of our public properties.
Well, yeah, we'd do that at least.
And then give everybody a chance. We still have some people that have not cleaned up their property and brought it to the curb. And rather than go back multiple times, we want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to clean their own property and get it out to the curb where it has to be for us to pick it up.
So we would start ASAP, it would just be internal properties first and then move to
Correct.
residential. That was the
Well, and
question.
I was reading in the paper this morning, Oklahoma City, they're not even projecting to start till January.
But they changed that, I think. I think they are starting sooner now.
And how much is it gonna slow it down if we got the bids for an outside contract?
We'd have to go out for bid. How long does that process take?
Well, that's
We would-
what I'm asking.
We wouldn't be starting in December.
I don't
Well, and
know.
plus, I don't know, how long does it
It'd be
take?
about a 3-week process to go out for bids.
We wouldn't be starting any sooner.
No,
For
but
sure,
I'm
if we
just
had to go out.
thinking, with his men he's got, how much is everything else gonna suffer while he's picking up bushes?
Can we,
If
is
we
this
get the
something, if we're going to
FEMA
get some 75% reimbursement, is this something that we, or potentially, maybe
That's-
we don't, maybe we don't.
If we get the reimbursement,
Are there-
there's no sense in burning him up, picking up bushes, when we're gonna get the reimbursement.
Can we hire temporary labor?
That's what I was thinking.
Well, unless it would, well, the only issue with that, Don, is unless it was $5 million to pick it up.
What's the issue?
You still have 25%.
Then you got 25% of that. You
Right.
know, we're looking at, over $1 million we're gonna have to come up with.
I don't think it's gonna be like.
I don't know what it's
That
gonna
was
be.
admin.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, by the figures that Leroy has there,
Well,
it's
if you're
not
looking
even
at,
that.
if you're looking at $9, all right, so even at 1.8 million, what are you looking at? You're looking at 350, 60 grand, 400,000.
Well, that was also considering they take out tree limbs and they do this and they do that. If we bid it out to say, we want you to drive your truck, pick up this pile and haul it off, and don't have all this other stuff that Harbor Masters was
An
putting into.
option that we would have is go ahead and start doing our public properties while everybody is getting theirs cleaned up and to the curb. We could go out for bids, and as soon as we get bids, then we could decide whether we're going to do it ourselves or contract
Or let the
out,
bid.
because we know the price, and our public would know that we're going to provide free curbside.
One way or the other.
One way or
Right.
the other for residential.
Right.
And it may be December 15th instead of December 1, but they know it's coming, they need to get it out there. And then once we open bids.
At least we would have looked at all
internal
avenues.
extra. By then, we may know for sure whether we're going to get FEMA reimbursement.
Well, and I think it goes a long way to our citizens to make sure that we do free public.
Well, I think we need to do that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what tax dollars are for this
Exactly.
kind of services, in my opinion. But secondly, can we work with code enforcement to ensure that all of the trees that need to be trimmed up from the road are taken care of now, so those can be also hauled away? Because we got a crap ton of trees that technically do not meet the height requirement that are hanging over the roads before an ice storm. So whatever's still left hanging out there, can we have them go out there and say, hey, you guys get to get these trimmed up to the curb and we'll haul them off? Because before, if you got a code
Well,
violation,
the street
you're
side-
responsible for all of it.
There is one complication to that. By mixing those, the part you're talking about would not be eligible for FEMA reimbursement. So we'd
That's
have to
true.
keep that separate because it's not storm debris.
Well, the tree just leans over further now because of the storm.
One thing I would share, just to
Make
keep
that
in mind,
storm
you know, I think whether we go out for bid or whether we use city forces, either way, I think, as long as we provide a service for the citizens, number one. But one thing that we do need to keep in mind, if we do go out for bid and we get a good price and we decide to go with a firm, outside firm, we're still going to have to go through all of the tracking and keeping up with all the record keeping and sending a crew out with, if they come in here with 3 trucks, we're going to have somebody with them 24/7 while they're here. That is one thing whenever I met with Arbor Masters, that they would expect somebody from our staff to be with them 24/7, taking pictures of every single load, every site, every pile that they pick up, the empty trucks from the time they dump and the time they reload.
So,
They normally use the firm, and we met with them as well, an outside firm that is just simply a monitoring firm that goes out on big debris disasters like this, and that's all they do is monitor and track behind these guys.
I can't imagine why we got anything to lose by going ahead and getting a request for a proposal, getting bids out there. And in the meantime, start with our,
You got plenty to do in the parks and everywhere else.
with our own internal stuff.
At least our citizens know we're going to do it.
Right.
Right.
well, let me ask you a question. You've run the numbers on this, I take it, so you know what human resources you're gonna need, what equipment you're gonna need, and what's the projected cost on our end if we paid forgetting FEMA for a minute, with salaries and the like.
I don't have that actual number of what our actual cost would be. I can tell you it'd be nowhere close to this because of our hourly rates compared to their hourly rates. The monitoring firm that we spoke with, you know, hourly rates that we're looking at, they're 60 plus per person. Hourly rates for some of the firms that we met with as far as the curbside stuff, some of them as high as $270 an hour.
When we put it out for bids, one of the other things we'll have to do is get a commitment on a start date. Because with so much of this around here, hurricanes, all
That's my
these
next
crews.
question.
We're not the only game in town.
Yes.
Well, for
So
example,
we want to make sure we get a commitment on a start date if we put it out for bids, so we know price plus start date.
so like this Edmund outfit may be March. You don't know what it's gonna be.
Not until we go out for bid and kind of get us a
Yeah.
date.
An electrician.
Yeah.
That's right.
So can we, is it possible to, without too much burden, to get
I don't know too many that
a
want.
relative close guesstimate at what our sunk cost would be, so that when we do get a bid that comes in, we can say, okay, we're gonna be putting 400 grand at this, our price, because FEMA's covering the rest, but if we do it internal, it's 180, or whatever it is.
Once we finish, say Cottonwood Flats, I'll be able to have a cost exactly what Cottonwood Flats cost us, or Mineral Wells Park, or all city facilities. We'll have those numbers. My projection is within a week, I'll have everything from all city facilities probably moved out and
Oh,
to
wow.
our staging site.
Okay.
So what would your projection be on the whole town?
Don't overload yourself.
No, I'm not asking you to
I don't
not a full-time
have a
basis.
projection on it. I mean, It varies so much.
Yeah.
We've been on our facilities, I've already seen and got brought to the curb most everything from all of our parks, and I have a good idea of what it's gonna take to get that stuff out of there. I haven't been on every single road to be able to say, put a protection.
So let me ask another question, and I don't mean to beat this in the ground, but if we do it internal and we have to purchase more equipment, does FEMA cover 75% of that?
We'd have to review that. What we normally do, because we have to pay salaries anyway, is when we get the reimbursement, a lot of times we use that to replace equipment or buy equipment because we've already paid those salaries.
No, I understand, that's one way to look at the side thing.
But is there opportunities for additional funding or grants to buy equipment, buy tub grinders? We have not
Trucks,
explored that
whatever.
yet. Yeah, we've not explored that.
You know, I think we still have to keep in mind that it's 25% potentially is still ours.
Correct.
And even if we got the state, would the state kick in that 12% on this too?
12 and a half?
Maybe?
I wouldn't hold my breath
Okay.
until I got it.
But, you know, again, it's not free. I think the key message is to the citizens is that there will be pickup.
Correct.
The second key message is patience.
There will
Third
be
one
pickup,
is
Chris.
get it to the curb, because we ain't cleaning your yard.
Well, we can't, yeah.
Well, secondly, not only we're not cleaning your yard, but what size, I mean, I see this cut to no more than 6-foot sections. So is that what we're going by, 6 feet? We want 6 feet sections?
I'm gonna have to rehire.
I've been telling people 4 to 6.
6 is what Edmund does.
I was gonna say, that's what Oklahoma City used to do, I don't know why.
Stillwater does 10, which is kind
I
of.
think Oklahoma City did 8, actually, didn't they?
I guess 6 is easier to handle, but.
It's varied from the different towns. I've spoke with about 4 different towns. It's varied. 6 is pretty, I mean, some of this stuff, you start getting into some of these bigger limbs, and if
Sure.
they're 8, 10 foot long, you're getting pretty heavy to start handling. A question I think you had earlier, James, was on if we could hire outside assistance. Anything that we look at hiring outside would have to go through the bidding process.
So
They may
temporary
hire
help
more
would,
staff.
In-house staff, outside staff would have to go through a bidding.
I mean, if you were to hire temp.
Temp
The
services would
problem
have to.
is, we can't keep his crew full as is.
Sure.
But we would want to be very careful if we hire temporary, because we don't want people that have limited training or experience out with trucks and equipment, loading stuff. So we couldn't just hire anybody, so
Well, they could
we
run a
will
shovel.
look, but
Dan out
finding
there.
Oh,
qualified
God.
people
Put them on a shovel.
would be our
Free somebody else.
issue that we'd have to deal with.
but the fact of the matter is, if we do it internal, there may be opportunity to gain something at the end of the day out of this, whether it's more equipment or
Yeah.
something.
True.
Yes, I think if you look historically, is we have gotten reimbursed for salaries that we've already paid. We've tried to be creative and use that to improve our department.
Right, exactly.
And that is at the end of the whole thing, I mean, that is the plus side that we come to, is we're able to then take that reimbursement and put it where it's really the most useful. I mean, we can look at tub grinders, and I'll just be honest with you, you look at our past storms. It's been 2004, it's been 2015, and now we're faced with this thing. They're gonna set. It's not what our true needs are here for everyday use. That money at 75% reimbursement, we can put that money where we really truthfully need it.
I bet you starting tomorrow, you and your crew could knock this out before Christmas. Completely, done.
I'm not gonna say yes or
I'd
no.
be careful. I'd be careful.
You go, Bill.
I'd be careful with that.
I think that's too aggressive.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get the water off your deck.
Boys, man, they start going, how many,
What about the response for future storm debris. event.
Before we go to that one, if I could, I emailed you all today. Of course, this is subject to your determination tonight if we were going to provide free curbside pickup. I sent you this draft news release with the standards, like the 6 foot. We need your all's feedback. If you're good with this, what we've set up, or if we need to modify this any.
That's that.
Yes. I can go through it tonight, or you can go through it and respond the rest of the week, however you want to do it.
We can,
I don't see anything wrong with this.
we just don't know the start date.
I thought it looked real good.
Okay. And then the last item then is, of course, discussion in regards to response to to future. And some of the things that we could look at because, well, one, we've never had a storm in Guthrie in the last 30 years probably of this magnitude as far as storm debris. But we could purchase tub grinders, limb grappling equipment. But if we purchase this, we also have to factor in not only the initial cost to buy the equipment, but you got fuel, you got manpower, blade replacement, maintenance cost. And then as Tenny indicated, we need street sweepers and things we use on a weekly basis. If we could get a grant to buy this, it'd be one thing, but if we're going to use our funds, then it's back to the argument of, you know, how often would you use the storm debris equipment versus equipment that you would use every day. It's kind of back to some people's argument relative to the ladder truck. You know, some people argued back when we purchased the ladder truck, maybe we should have bought a pumper first because we use that pumper every week, but ladder truck's not used as frequently. Well, again, you get back to this, if we're gonna use our money, would be better off buying street sweepers and things we would use on a weekly basis versus using our money. Now, we will look at grants, and if we can get grants, then that kind of changes that equation. Just throw that out for your all's discussion.
well, and look at how long it's been since we had an ice storm like this, because it doesn't usually freeze with the greenery on the trees.
Correct.
Usually, at least they're changed, you know, color, it would have been a big difference.
Yeah, I think to spend a lot of money on very specialized equipment to respond to an event that happens very infrequently is probably not
Well, this is like a
the
once
best
in a
use of
lifetime
resources.
But I do agree that we need to have a plan for when we do have the 2004, the 2010 type storms, whether it be a grappler on the back of a truck or trailer for our semi or something, to where we can provide the service.
Is it possible to lease that kind of equipment? Any of it? Grapple the truck and all that stuff?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It may be a possibility, but that's not something that I'm aware
I
of.
just can't see any sense in buying something with that many moving parts.
Well, see,
Doesn't
we
make
have-
any sense at all to me.
We've got a semi-tractor. If we had a trailer with a grappler,
Yeah.
a big 40-yard trailer with a grappler,
And I understand the truck and the grappler, but when you get into some of the more specified stuff like the air curtain, the air blower, the air incinerator curtain, that's required right now for burning, you're talking $60,000 for something that it's gonna set for 5-6 years. That's some of the cheaper things, but it is strictly for one purpose and one purpose only. I think our city, a city our size, we need to look more versatile and try to think more versatile.
I do think we need a plan in place, because how many of us got phone calls after it happened, people asking, what are they gonna do? When are they gonna do it? Are they picking it up? Are they
how
not?
big do we need to cut it? Where
I
do we need
mean,
to
yeah,
put
where are
it?
we gonna put it? I mean, do I need to haul it off and dump it on a county road? What do I need to do? I mean, that was the question.
I'm getting those calls even after it's been put on.
Well, you're gonna get those calls tomorrow because
sure,
it's not
but-
timely enough, no matter what we do.
Sure, but if we had a plan in place, I think it'd be nice to know.
Well, I think a lot of the documentation that we prepared for this response will put us in a position to react quickly. I think the public knows that, first, I mean, before we even provide a space to take it to, we have to go through the DEQ process. And so they have to be patient
Yeah.
until we get the DEQ permit. We already have a news release prepared so that when we get that, we know what the rules are going to be. If we do the curbside pickup, we have those standards set now, so we can tell people, if you'll use curbside pickup, here's what you need to do. And then it'll just be a matter of deciding when we start and whether we do it in-house or bid. So I think we'll be much further ahead than we are now, but still people are going to have to be patient because some of the approvals come from DEQ and outside entities that respond when they want, not when we want.
And I think,
Once the leaves are off the trees, it's gonna take a serious ice storm to pull anything more down. Substantially.
I think
Really
we,
did.
to some extent, have a plan in place and the citizens see it, and that's why they're expecting us to move so quickly. One thing that we need, and I'll just say, if we was to do every bit of it in-house, this is not my first go-around. This would be about the fourth time we've done curbside that I've picked it up with city staff. And I think that's why the citizens expect that or see it as our plan. That's how we've done it in the past. One thing that we need to keep in mind with the plan, which I think is a great idea, the regulations change all the time. Next year, at this time, we may not be a burn-free county, which that takes away every bit of the whole chipping. I mean, it's a free-for-all out there. You just never know what the regulations are going to be from year to year.
I might point out another complication that did not help us is the second and third floor of City Hall was dark for 2 days. We didn't have internet, we didn't have phone service, we didn't have heat or electricity. So there's 2 days we really couldn't do anything as far as preparing paperwork to submit to DEQ because we had no means to do anything. So,
Well, but that's all
so
done,
we lost
right?
2 days.
We don't have anything else we need to submit.
No, we
at
got
this
it all
point.
submitted. We submitted it, we got back in business on Thursday and everything was submitted by Friday.
Now, who do we have to, on a bid process, how much does that cost us? Because usually, I'm used to dealing with Myers Engineer and that type of stuff, and there's always a fee involved.
I think we can prepare our own bid packet for this.
Okay?
Move on. So if I'm understanding correctly, we really don't need any action tonight. We are going to provide free curbside pickup to residential. And we are going to put it out for bids, so we don't know our exact start date. Once we open bids, then we'll determine whether we're going to do it in-house or use an outside contractor and firm up our start date. Right now, everybody needs to get their stuff on their property, out to the curb, 6 foot lengths, put it parallel to the curb and not on water meters and that kind of stuff that's in the news release. We will do our public property while we're giving them time to get their stuff out to the curb.
Correct.
In the meantime,
Right.
Tenny's gonna give us a thumbnail of what our costs potentially will be versus what our
Some
bid.
cubic yard type cost.
Yeah.
So do we think we'll know by December if FEMA's going to do any reimbursement or not?
It's outside our control. I know it's in the process, but if you look at where federal government is today and all the election hoopla, things aren't moving as fast. But I would think we would know sometime in December, hopefully. The wheels are moving.
We've already had one virtual meeting with the Oklahoma Emergency Management. That's a pretty good idea that the wheels turning on their side. So they've advised us to go ahead and treat it as one, track everything, every movement that we make. So it's a good chance.
And plus, it's a lot of the state, and we were declared a disaster in 47 counties by the governor.
We should, talking to David, the cost threshold that we're experiencing to address this debris, we will exceed the minimum required for the national disaster that brings the FEMA funds in.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, there is a plan.
And in the meantime, the citizens can truck or trailer their debris to the dump site if they want to.
Something,
Convenient.
Leroy, that I would like to see us address in all of this is, we've had a lot of residents have already taken their debris, and they're having to pay for it. Are we gonna allow them to turn their receipts back in for reimbursement, since we're allowing them to go out there free?
Well, that's a two-sided coin. I mean, we clearly made it knowledgeable to them that they need to be patient. We were working on options, but if they didn't want to be patient, didn't want to wait, they could do that and pay for it. They made that choice.
Okay, okay. I just
And
because I've been asked that question, I wanna be able to answer it.
When they paid that $10, we didn't put that in our pocket. That $10 went to Waste Connections.
That's what I'm saying, they put it in the dumpsters.
So we don't have that $10 sitting there to give it back to them.
And they would have used the dumpsters, right?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So I needed.
Okay, I'm just trying to
Okay.
explain it.
okay, all right.
So
I think the direction is clear, the plan is in place, and patience should be exercised as we move forward.